The story continues as Crimson is surprised to learn that Ragna is fighting against Ultimacia. She wonders why it was so easy to find her and realizes that the plan was originally to test Ragna's strength. If Ragna can defeat Ultimacia, the plan will succeed. However, if things go wrong, he needs to handle the situation. While watching the fight, Crimson receives a message from a girl informing her that the two big dragons they were looking for can't be found. Crimson remembers that when the battle started, the protective barrier around the capital disappeared. She thinks Nebula might be gone and tells Chimera to come back. Golem notices that Borg has left the castle, and he receives the order to stop Borg. He follows the orders but mentions that it's hard to actually kill Borg because the body he's using is very limited. Crimson clarifies that the goal is just to slow Borg down, not to kill him. At the same time, Ultimacia is continuously getting hit without keeping count of how many times she's been killed. She's starting to feel like she's running out of time to come back to life. Borg tries to help Ultimacia, but Golem attacks him from far away and messes up his dragon form. Meanwhile, Ragna gets trapped in a magic barrier created by Nebula. Ragna notices that the kid is almost dead, and Nebula, trying to stay strong for Ultimacia to escape, decides to use her own blood to summon dragons to attack Ragna. However, Ragna uses super strong silverine magic to break Nebulum's barrier. Nebulum tries to strengthen her magic to restrain Ragna, but Slime shows up, eats Nebula, and frees Ragna. Ultima has already left, but Ragna goes after her and attacks with his powerful silverine magic. Ragna takes Ultimacia away from the capital, declaring that he won't hold back anymore. Ultimacia decides to use her last trick and turns back time, bringing everything to the moment where the dragons were burned. Something feels off to Ragna, and Ultimacia shows up behind him, stopping time. She explains that it takes a lot of magic to rewind the whole world, so she doesn't use it often. Ultimacia says the battle is done, but she's unsure what to do with Ragna. She notices Ragna doesn't like her, though she doesn't know why. Despite wanting to understand more, she decides it's better to kill him. She relocates the humans elsewhere, leaving only her and Ragna. She promises a gentle death, but realizes Ragna is with Slime and wonders about the kid. Before she can think more, she notices Ragna moved his finger, surprising her because time isn't rewinding. Nebulum shows up behind Ultimacia and attacks Ragna for revenge. Ultimacia sees Ragna isn't moving, confirming he didn't move during that weird time. She tells Nebulum to stop attacking, but Nebulum says the enemy is still alive. Ultimacia explains that Ragna broke all defenses, and Nebulum's hits can't hurt him. She thinks of Ragna's body like a strong silver sword, tough against magic. Ultimacia asks Borg to tell the king to use a powerful light attack on Ragna, and requests Nebulum to make a barrier for safety. Ragna starts getting up, blocking Ultimacia's way to escape. Even though he's moving slowly, it's still scary for her. She attacks him, realizing her time control isn't working completely. Crimson explains that when Ultimacia uses time magic control, she can choose to let certain people move while others stay frozen. In this case, she probably chose some of her family members to move but accidentally let Ragna move too. Ragna keeps moving forward, and Nebulum tries to shield Ultimacia with his barrier. However, Ragna smashes through all of them with his head, finally getting close to Ultimacia. Ragna sees that the dragon monarch looks scared of him, but Ultimacia resets everything back to normal. Even though time goes back, Ragna can still move and flies toward them. He breaks through all the barriers she tries to put up, getting closer to hurting her. Suddenly, he stops and starts bleeding from his face, feeling pain all over his body. Ragna realizes he's suffering because he used his future powers too much and falls to the ground, bleeding a lot. The king shoots the Aurora Ray at Ragna. After the dust clears, Nebula sees a human woman, but her face is hidden. Borg advises Ultima to freeze time so she can escape, but she's too shocked by seeing Ragna hurt. Crimson comments that Ragna is in bad shape because he didn't heed advice, and she wonders what to do with Nebula. Crimson reflects that Ultimacia always disliked battles, viewing them as contests of strength. Despite her confidence in time control, Ultimacia is now traumatized and fearful after Ragna shattered her beliefs. Crimson no longer sees Ultimacia as the formidable winged monarch, but as a weak and scared girl. Despite the opportunity, Ultimacia is hesitant to eliminate Ragna, shaken by her perceived failure in magic. Nebula tries to bring Ultimacia back to reality, but she's still disturbed by her defeat. To Crimson's surprise, Ultimacia attempts another spell, but Crimson detonates a building, distracting her. More explosions follow around the capital, shocking Ultimacia, who wanted to give a painless death. Crimson, with a sinister smile, revels in causing pain, death, and despair. Tens of thousands have died, and more explosions continue. Crimson challenges Ultimacia on what the compassionate dragon will do as people suffer in the streets. Crimson knows Ultimacia can save them with her power. Ultimacia, feeling helpless, decides to use her power to rewind the world, but Nebula stops her, warning it will deplete all her magic. Annoyed, Crimson decides to withdraw, leaving Ultimacia in tears as she witnesses the suffering. Crimson encounters Golem in an alley and berates him for not planting a bomb in the clock tower and not having enough explosives on the castle walls. Annoyed, Crimson punishes Golem by sticking a bottle in his eye. Crimson is angry because Golem didn't follow orders, but Golem apologizes, explaining his distraction in the area. Crimson forces the bottle deeper, revealing that Ultimacia would have used her spell if those places were destroyed. Crimson walks away, mentioning this is the last time Golem disobeys orders. Golem complies but is shocked that Crimson realized his intentions. Crimson opens a door with his key and instructs Golem to stay back and dispose of his current body, monitoring the bloodline's movements in his base form. Golem is frightened as it's a literal punishment, but Crimson asserts he doesn't need a servant who tests his master. Golem is surprised that Crimson saw through his intentions, realizing his boss is the same psycho he always knew. Meanwhile, Nebulum still has Ultimacia in his arm and starts crying. After all, he was useless and couldn't do anything. He then remembers a conversation he had with Borg about the dragon maturation period. In short, it's the time they take to adapt to their progenitor's blood. The quicker they go through this period, the higher their potential. Zora took 1 year, while Volta Kamui took only 2 days. However, Nebulum was a split second. In short, his potential as a bloodline member is the highest in dragon history. He is supposed to become Ultimacia's backbone, but he still isn't able to protect her. He doesn't understand how he is supposed to surpass Volta Kamui because Volta Kamui would prevent all of this. He realizes how weak he is and desires to become stronger. Suddenly, magic engulfs his body, and it starts to spin around. Crimson senses something and realizes that Nebulum has evolved. This guy, with his new power, promises that he will find both Ragna and Crimson. Crimson realizes Nebulum's new potential, knowing that Nebulum is sensing him in another spatial realm and is looking for him. However, Crimson knows Nebulum won't be able to find him because Crimson created this room during his prime. It's a gate connected to every part of the world, making it impossible to find him. Despite Nebulum's sudden increase in power, he won't be able to touch him even if he finds him. It's impossible to break through using outside forces. Crimson then links up with his lunar base. He thinks things didn't go according to plan, but the outcome was quite amazing. He decides to begin his preparations for the next few years and decides to leave upon hearing those words. Ragna starts to remember his time with Leo. He forces his body to get up and tells Crimson he won't be leaving. He falls to the side and repeats he won't leave until he finishes his job to hunt Ultimacia. He tries to force his body up and get back to fight again. He tells Crimson he knows this is a teleportation room and says he will return. Crimson tries to calm him down, mentioning the battle is over and the results are amazing. Crimson blushes while claiming that Ragna is stronger than expected, which is weirder than his psycho smile. Crimson laughs it out, mentioning how Ultimacia looked pathetic while panicking. But for now, Ragna must rest, or Crimson will take his head. Ragna gets angry, shouting that he doesn't care about Crimson's feelings, he just cares about killing Ultimacia. He doesn't want to let her live for another second and forces his body up. He uses all his willpower to activate his Silverine Battle Arts aura, claiming he will go back. Crimson cannot believe Ragna has still this much power, and tells Chimera to restrain him. Crimson then steps on Ragna's head, complaining that he tried to use his technique. He calls him a stupid idiot, and promises to kill him if Ragna damages this chamber. The Silverine Battle Arts and alternative dimensions cannot be paired together, and just by using his aura, Ragna made a small crack in this pocket dimension. Crimson decides to quickly fix the crack, but Nebulum has found them. Crimson cannot believe this is possible and tries to open the door, but it doesn't bulge. Nebulum claims he will destroy the barrier and drag them out of there. Crimson realizes the door doesn't open because of the combination of Ragna and Nebul powers. Crimson starts to freak out, calling Nebulum an idiot who devotes himself to Ultimacia. He yells at Nebulum to know his place and orders Golem to kill him. Golem, who was hiding in a building, headshots Nebulum with a Silverine sniper despite losing part of his head. Nebulum tells Borg to attack the sniper, however, there's something more dangerous right now, Ragna. Chimera cannot restrain him anymore, and he manages to break free. He gets up, using all his power, and decides to confront Nebulum. Each of them makes a promise that they will kill each other. Crimson cannot believe what the hell is happening right now. Their power is completely destroying her magic. She gets mad at Ragna because he's helping their enemy ruin his plan. But Ragna is still powering up all his aura. We then see the military training ground of Northeast Lees. There's a girl complaining that dragons were supposed to attack this place tonight, but the dragon's killing intent was suddenly disturbed. The guy then comes, calling her princess and wants to report something. He first questions why she is eating that piece of meat. She replies that dragons kill people, so she will eat dragons too. In retaliation, the guy informs their teleportation circle underground drew someone in. She asks if it's a dragon, but the guy says it's better for her to make the judgment. Meanwhile, we see a blindfolded Crimson being escorted by guards. He thinks that he's quite unlucky because they were expelled from the globe chamber and arrived at a random location. Crimson is usually prepared for this situation, but this place is just the worst possible scenario. He woke up and already had a blade at his neck. He wanted to get out of the country, but he ended up being captured by the worst possible person in the kingdom. She then meets Princess Starlia, who's the commander of the Royal Army's special troops. Starlia welcomes Crimson and asks her subordinates for an explanation. Her subordinate explains they drew a magic circle and two guys randomly appeared. He also explains the circle isn't damaged, so their mission won't be affected. Starlia laughs and then asks about Ragna. The second person, her advisor, replies that Ragna is in critical condition and cannot talk. However, they already tested his blood and confirmed that he isn't a dragon, therefore, he's being taken care of. They didn't test Crimson's blood because he agreed to answer some question. Starlia decides to deal with Crimson, but first offers him some dragon meat to eat. Crimson follows the instructions, but starts puking it out when Starlia reveals it's dragon meat. Staria laughs it out, but Crimson thinks about all the information he has about Starlia. She was born with no arms, but her eyes can sense the aura emitted by all matter, and that aura allowed her to move anything like telekinesis. The first thing she controlled was a silverware set, and she became known as the Silverware Princess. By the age of 6, she took 3 inferior dragons by herself. 2 years later, she slayed a horde of dragons, including 2 medial ones. In short, she quickly became full of talents, winning tournaments and creating gear to destroy dragons. But that's not the reason Crimson hates her. He hates her because Starlia's eyes allow her to see lies. Starlia then opens her eyes and begins the questioning. She asks who Crimson is and how he got there. Crimson decides to think about this whole situation before replying. He knows Starlia wants to use the magic circle to flee the country because Zora and Terra are pursuing them, and they have no chance against those dragons. In short, Starlia's goal and Crimson's match up. He thinks they should cooperate and escape to a secure area. However, the biggest problem is how Crimson will trick her. The princess can see the aura changes based on emotions, which makes it hard for Crimson. He thinks that he needs to act but includes something real about himself to convince Starlia. He blames Ragna for being in this whole situation while he's just sleeping. The princess starts to complain because Crimson hasn't responded in 2 seconds. Crimson apologizes but realizes that Starlia doesn't notice how annoyed she is. So, he concludes he can trick her with lies by using his aura. He then decides to show one of his eyes, making everyone startled. They call him a dragon, but Crimson introduces himself as Chris Weiss, a thaumaturge. This brings an end to our episode.